Meeting to order. Let's begin with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those following along at home, we're going to change the agenda around a little bit. We're going to start with the Volunteer Fire Infrastructure and Response Equipment Grant. Maddie Zahach, if you can, please kick us off.
I'd be happy to. Good evening, board. Good evening, everybody. So this is going to be sort of a simple, more of an informational update than an ask. I have been working with Fire Chief Scarduzio for the last couple months on exploring grant opportunities specific to the Ossining Fire Department. And though there is some money available, it tends to be in the smaller dollar amounts with a very, very long application process. And in my limited experience working with FD grants, the granting agency tends to pick a focus every year. And sometimes the focus matches what we have coming up in our capital plan and that fits our needs. And sometimes it very much does not, as unfortunately, which was the case with another grant that we were looking for a couple months ago. But the good news is New York State Homeland Security and Emergency Services has a grant opportunity available that we're going to be making application to. There is no match for this funding, but basically this would be for equipment for volunteer fire departments serving municipal entities. So in this case, the Ossining Fire Department serving the village and the majority of the unincorporated town of Ossining. And the request is quite simple. We had spoken last fall with Bob Mitchell and his team about some of their findings as a result of the firehouse consolidation study. And one of those findings was that until we find a suitable site and are able to design and construct a consolidated firehouse that has sufficient facilities for decontamination, one of the suggestions and something that we embraced and are happy to move forward with was ordering a second set of turnout gear for active firefighters so that when they arrive on the scene, if they're participating in an active incident, they can go home with a set of clean gear while the gear that they use during the incident is being cleaned. So this is something that we talked to the board about during the 2024 budget process, and the board enthusiastically said, yes, let's please put that in the capital plan. Unfortunately, this is not a small ticket item. We got a quote, or I should say the chief got a quote, that for one set for one firefighter is about $5,000. So to ensure that we have a sufficient supply in a variety of sizes is not a small ticket item. So we had $200,000 earmarked in the capital plan for 2024 for this expense. Luckily, this expense is eligible for this grant funding through Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services out of New York State through this grant. So in working with the chief, we have put together a proposal, which I think is very sound. We are going to get a couple letters of support, assuming that the board is in support of submitting this application, and the grant is due next Tuesday. So the ask is going to be for 50 full sets of turnout gear. And we are going to work, if granted, with Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services to work through a use plan for how we're going to use that backup set of turnout gear. And hopefully this is a pretty simple and open and shut grant. Typically, what we're writing is planning grants that are a little bit more involved. This was pretty straight to the point. Tell us what you need, how you plan to use it, and verify that the amount you're asking for is realistic. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this is due next Tuesday, so we have some time to tweak it. I know that this is going to get passed around to the OFD to take a look before it's finalized, but happy to answer any questions in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Village Manager. I'll start with Trustee Fritchie with comments, questions, thoughts, reactions.
Being a member, I'm well aware of what's going on. That's my comment.
Thank you, Trustee Fritchie. Trustee Casada.
Thank you, sir. Maddie, thank you. I guess my only more like a little bit more clarification, the $200,000 that was set aside for capital projects, when you mentioned the 50,
Sets of turnout gear. Yeah.
yeah, well, someone, anyway.
I'm sorry, I can't hear well. Apologize.
That's fine. So the equipment that the grant is going to be being proposed, is that going to be covering all the equipment, all the turnout gear for our firefighters?
So I worked with the chief on coming up with a number. So the amount available is $500,000. The amount in the budget was $200,000. What we are looking for is somewhere in the middle. 50 sets is just shy of $250,000. I think it's 249,100. I think when the chief was originally approaching the board about this, he thought that 40 sets would be sufficient, hence the 200 number. But because this money is available, if we can get an extra 10 sets, he thinks that that would be prudent to do so.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Trustee White.
Thank you. Could you just explain, or Bob, you probably could, just explain for everybody what turnout gear is again? What is the point of this stuff?
Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to punt to Trustee Fritchie on that one. All I know is jacket and pants, but I can't speak to any more specific than that, unfortunately.
Well, the turnout consists of your boots, your bunker pants that we put on, and a coat and a helmet. And they're all for fire service. And the whole idea is that, like Maddie explained, is if you come out of a fire and you were in the active fire, the idea is to take your turnout gear off and bag it. And it'll go back to a centralized decon area, which is yet to be determined. And then you have your other set of gear at home to put back in your car or wherever you put
Okay.
it. Because the problem for years is we've just taken it off, put it in our cars and the carcinogens, and it's just not a good situation.
So it's just an extra set so you can get the other cleaned up.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll go into the machine and and 10 minutes later you could have another fire. So you never know.
So the decontamination will be in the village. It's not like you send it out to some.
No, the mindset is to, we have one machine now, which is definitely not enough for what is required. In the new design of the new building, whenever that does happen, that'll have a whole decontamination area. Where you take your clothes off, you put it there, you go take a shower, your clothes go in the laundry, you come back out, there's lockers, you put fresh clothes on and you go home. That's future. But for right now, we need to, which most likely will be at headquarters, that will set up this decontamination area with maybe another extra machine or two, or whatever we can do, to make this easier on everybody.
And Trustee Fritchie, if I could just piggyback on that quickly. I wanted to add, and Karen might be able to speak a little bit more about this. We actually got an opportunity through, I believe it was Senator Harkin's office, to make application for $50,000 for a new gear washer and dryer, which I think is going to be appreciably larger than the set that's currently at headquarters. I don't think we have any reason to believe that we're not going to be granted that, because this money was earmarked again specifically for local fire departments. We've not yet heard. We were supposed to hear in late March, early April about that money, but that was $50,000 to purchase that set and perhaps help a little bit with making renovations to clear room for it. So that's also something that we've been working on, but no news yet.
Okay, Assistant Village Manager, the only question that I have is around turnaround time. Do you have a sense of when we will hear back about this grant, and then when we do, what kind of timing it looks like to order this and then be able to get it in?
Sure do. So the timing that they talk about in the grant abstract is that these awards will be announced during summer of 2024. I'm optimistic that they will stick to that turnaround time. As far as the contract, we know that process can be a little bit slow. So I would assume probably a couple months on that end. But the very, very good news that I heard from Chief Scarduzio just yesterday is that the company from whom we got the quote is actually on state contract. So that sort of helps us. This is, like I said, not a small ticket item. Typically something like this may have to go to bid or go through a different sort of process. We're actually able to avoid having to do that by virtue of the fact that this equipment retailer is part of New York State's contract. So I would assume that if all goes well, we're probably talking November, which is not amazing, but I don't know if we ordered it today that it would get here very much sooner than that anyway, using our own money.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're set there. The second item on the agenda is the OPD cybersecurity grant.
Taking my role now?
No, I'm asking, are we ready to go there?
We are not quite. The lieutenant was waiting for my go ahead to appear. So I can get in touch with him now. But perhaps we
You
can
know
move
what,
on to
why
the
don't we
refreshment.
do the local? No, that, not the legal wants to do. The local law, do you want to do the?
Let's do that.
Okay, we'll do the local law. So this is a discussion of proposed local law 2020, what? I'm missing the number here, but 2024. But this has to do with amending definitions under chapter 147 for food establishments, but definitions pertaining to alcohol, refreshment services, definition of liquor, things like that. And Stuart will provide more detail.
Thank you, Karen. Good evening, folks. Oh, well, I'm gonna hold it. It's flashing on and off. Now it's, no. It's on. May I borrow yours, Karen? Absolutely. Thank you. Here we go. Folks, this local law is to revise essentially the definition of what is a refreshment business. Our current definition is rather, it predates me, and what it basically now has is that it's a business conducted or proposed to be conducted for the sale or offering for sale at retail or consumption on the premises where sold, either as a separate business or in connection with any other business of any malt or vinous beverage, any soft drink, including tea, coffee, milk, cocoa, etc. What I've done is to avoid having the police to have to go in and figure is something malt, is it this or is that, is to essentially use the SLA's definition. An SLA defines what is an alcoholic beverage. They define what is a spirit. They define what is liquor. And so the definition of refreshment license would now read, it is a business conducted or proposed to be conducted for the sale or offering for sale or consumption on the premises where sold, either as a separate business or in connection with any other business, any alcoholic beverages, any soft drinks, including tea, coffee, milk, chocolate, cocoa, any carbonated beverages, and any other beverages produced by the process by which beer, ale, porter, wine, or spirits are produced. That's comparable to what you find in the State Liquor Authority in terms of the definitions. This wouldn't put our police in a position of going in and saying, are they selling something that they are allowed to sell? Or this would basically, you don't have a refreshment business license, you can't sell. And basically that's that, I think, broadens it, but also makes it easier for enforcement purposes. So, and as I said, this definition, I think, goes back to 74 and probably was due for a rewrite with all the issues we've had with many of the refreshment licenses. This is something I had discussed with Sergeant Chavez, Detective Chavez, as well as with Captain Donahue, with Clerk Donnelly, and all of the view that it probably would be good to tweak the definition of refreshment business and also with that include definitions of alcoholic beverage, liquor, and spirits. Those three definitions come directly from the Alcoholic Beverage and Control Law of the state of New York. So that's the amendment or the proposed amendment to chapter 145, I'm sorry, subsection 7.
Okay, we'll start to the right this time. Trustee White?
So a refreshment license, is that a state requirement that every, no, that's our requirement.
The important thing to understand is we are not stopping someone from, we can't take someone's liquor license away.
Right,
We can
SLA
stop
has to
the
do that.
person from selling, but we can't take a liquor license away. That's the SLA's responsibility. So, you know, we would report violations to the SLA and they can act accordingly, but the actual determination of what to do with a license, be it suspended, revoked, whatever, that's an SLA determination. The refreshment business license is a village issued license.
And it covers all beverages, not just alcoholic beverages.
Correct.
I'm just wondering why you need a license to serve soda? I don't know,
That's a policy decision you folks can deal with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, if you want to revise your, the refreshment business to basically just deal essentially with, alcohol, spirits and liquor, you could do that. But right now it has basically everything. I think the idea is that, we go in, we inspect. Generally, the reason that these get denied is that they're failing an inspection.
Yeah.
Generally, they failed something. And the only way, in many ways, to get enforcement or get them to comply is to basically say you can't sell anything. I mean, basically, and understand it's for consumption on premises. So if in fact you have a place and they want to sell, but they sell and the person leaves with it, that's okay. That's not blocked by this, but it's consumption on premises that is specifically blocked. But if the board was of the view to sort of modify that, that's again, that's the board's call. It's but
So this language has been on the books since the seventies, you
at
said?
least since 74 that I can see. As a refreshment business license, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Casada.
Thank you. Thanks, Stuart. Dana, I thought you were gonna ask this question. So, and I guess this is gonna be the question to the board, even though the mayor's not here. But I'd be willing to actually, and totally, I understand this and I agree with you, Stuart, that makes it a lot easier under the definitions itself. Helps clarify and quantify a lot of the stuff that we've been seeing. But I guess my concern or my struggle still is, and you and I had this conversation in the past, and you mentioned the same thing you just did, is that we should be looking, to modify some of the laws, because in a way, even though we're not allowing them to sell the alcohol, but I think if we still want to encourage the business level of the community, I mean, even a juice in a restaurant, you won't be able to drink, so nothing for you, Stuart, right now, obviously, but if the board is willing to look into the application process and modify this, so I'm asking the board if they're willing to do that or not, and kind of take it from there, and, having some sort of caveats into that law, into the application itself, not just to keep her in the business itself or a restaurant, because I'm buying something, I'm gonna have to do a takeout so I can take my drink with it. So I can go home and eat my food and my drink. So,
Well, I'm willing to do that, yeah.
That's all I have on this one. So thanks, Stuart, for the definitions and clarifications that I've been asking the board if we can look into this application to be revised.
For clarity, your request is to look at having a refreshment law at all.
No, I think for me it will be more or less where, and I don't know, how we feel, it's like, do we need, I think the license, refreshment license will be strictly for alcohol beverages, or any stuff, for juices, for sodas. Do we need to have a business to have a license to sell those, or restaurant to have those items, in place? To me, it will be like to eliminate that portion out of the application itself. So we're not limited that place, the business, to have this or to sell these items for consumption while they're there.
Got it.
I think that's what I'm asking.
So revising the refreshment law so that it's limited to alcoholic beverages.
In a way, yes, correct.
I mean, I'm sure I'm willing to listen to, I just probably need a lot more information, but I'm certain, I'm willing to do that, to think about that.
Okay. Welcome, Mayor. I want to continue with Trustee Fritchie and then bring it to you.
So Stuart, just if I go to sit down in a restaurant, Main Street, and they don't have this, and all they serve is soda, and they don't have a refreshment license, they can't serve me a soda.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Under the current law, that is correct.
Okay, so I'm in favor of looking at this and doing something, tweaking it somehow, take out the soft drinks or whatever, and the spirits, the wine, the liquor, that should be regulated, but it just, I'm in favor of doing some type of change here.
So recapping for the mayor, Stuart presented the local law No number yet, 2024. We've learned from previous experiences to hold off on adding the local number until we know for sure. But it's specific to the food establishment and the beverage law here. So the conversation thus far has kind of evolved into the question, should we have revised language that is limited to alcohol and not include things like cocoa and chocolate and milk and coffee and tea, which the current language does include,
Stuart,
or shakes.
Stuart, did you have an opinion on it as well? Sorry I'm late, by the way. I
I-
couldn't get here on time. So.
I merely advise the board if they wish to change that policy, that's their call.
Okay.
What we've done is it's basically been a means of enforcing the code. Because what usually happens is if we have businesses that don't pass inspections or have to do certain things. We had one business that was not getting a refreshment license because they were not changing the light bulb in an exit sign. I mean, and that literally took 3 months, to be honest. And that's a business that does not serve alcoholic beverages. So if you're going to allow that business to essentially do that for 3 months, you know, basically the carrot and the stick is you're not going to get a refreshment business license unless you do something like that. Ultimately, that was done and they got the refreshment license.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, story, and we can go into a different channel because that's New York State law. You're talking about fire inspections as well. So it's not just to obtain a license for refreshment. So to me, it's like, yeah, there's a pad, but I think you sort of combining two pads
No,
into
no,
one.
not
Yeah.
with all due respect,
Yeah.
because part of the inspection is an operating permit inspection. Okay, they failed their inspection. And what they failed was the simplest thing, put a bulb in an exit sign.
But isn't that part also a fire inspection as well?
But this is the inspection they do
I
that's
get
what,
that.
all I'm saying is they couldn't do that. The way you got it finally done was to say, you have no refreshment license. Your business will be shut. And that business, if they couldn't do it, would not operate because they do not sell anything but coffee, tea, milk, and things like that.
Yeah, but at the same time, and again, and I don't want to go back into that you can also have a fire inspection, they failed that fire inspection at the same time, and you have all the options as
But
well.
if they
not
failed
just
fire inspection and you're allowing them to serve soda, it wouldn't matter. They,
Yeah, but
the
you
business
can
was
also
still-
you can also put fines and all this other stuff that we do have in place as well.
Right, but given the fact that we meet in court once every 3 weeks and it takes a while for a case to come up, the likelihood is the stronger deterrent is to not issue the license rather than wait until it comes up in court for a violation under an operating permit. But again, it's the board's call. We can tweak it any way that the board wants. This was done originally because there was not necessarily a gap, but basically we wanted to encompass all different types of alcoholic beverage. And that's why the change was here. But if the board wants to go in a different direction, all you gotta do, let me know and I'm happy to proceed.
Okay, so when you're walking away from this conversation, what are you walking away as the next steps?
I don't know,
Right.
plus I have no direction.
That's right. That's okay. There was a conversation, but I'm not hearing.
So I'll add my piece. I haven't commented yet. So there are two questions on the table. Question one is, should the local law, as Stuart has updated it, move forward? And there seems to be no opposition to adding more specifics when it comes to defining alcoholic beverage and liquor and spirits and the other linguistic changes. So I think that when it comes to question number one, there doesn't seem to be any opposition to saying, yes, move forward, Stuart, so we can update this language. It did bring up, though, question number two, which is, let's take a look at this more holistically. Should we evaluate this so that it's limited to alcoholic beverages and not soft drinks and other things? And if that is the case, then what are the benefits and drawbacks? That's a larger conversation. And it seems like the strongest case for keeping it is one of enforcement, because if we take it away, we take away a tool that we have as a village and our ability to have businesses meet the standard that they are supposed to meet. Even if it's not always one-to-one, this is one of a somewhat limited number of tools that we have. That seems to be the strongest case for keeping the soft beverage thing. So I think that we're pretty clear in terms of how to move forward here, but there is another conversation to have.
So Stuart, can we add a condition upon a failure of a fire inspection or a local inspection that your license will be suspended until it's remedied?
Well, they don't get the permit until they pass the inspection. That's part of, typically they file the application comes in, it goes to OPD, it goes to finance, and it goes to building. Building does an inspection. If they don't pass the inspection, they're not even getting the permit.
Right, that's on the original application.
It's on a renewal as well.
So, okay, so what I'm saying is if there was a fire inspection scheduled and it's in the middle of the year, it's not during their renewal period, and they walk in and code enforcement fails them, can we not revoke it, but suspend their license until it's remedied?
Could, they have to be.
I mean, it helps with the tool somewhat.
We would have to change that if we were to do that. I have to just check out under our licensing statute to see specifically. There are provisions for a violation where you can actually, the clerk can suspend the license. We've done that, as this board knows, on other cases.
Yeah, but I think, Bob, the part that I think it's not clear, I don't know, my suggestion is pretty much if I have a restaurant and I'm not selling any alcohol, okay? I'm just literally strictly selling soda, juices, coffee, tea, any of that stuff. I should not be required to have a beverage license. So because of that, I don't have to fill out an application. Now, if I was to request, I get a license for the SLL, New York State, grant me that, then I come back to the board and ask for it. That's the only time that the village will be able to go there and do an inspection for, beverage in a way of alcohol. What I'm saying is, we have fire inspections, we're supposed to be doing fire inspections every 3 years. If that facility fails the fire inspection, then it's a totally different item. That has nothing to do with the licenses with the village. Correct.
So,
So that's why my suggestion is not to have a requirement for a business that does not sell any alcohol beverages. That's my request.
I just want to make a slight distinction. Trustee Quesada, absolutely correct. One of the biggest challenges that, that we have is code enforcement. So very often, the implications of, say, failing a fire inspection don't result in an immediate consequence because it then goes out of our hand or we have to go to court. It takes a long time. So I just want the board to understand it's an extra layer of enforcement that does get compliance sooner rather than later. That said, it's not something that we have to do. I just want to make it clear that because enforcement can be a challenge and it can take time to get compliance, that it's just an extra little bit of leverage. That's it.
Look, we established that before when we changed, if you fail a fire inspection, you go back for a free portion of that. So free inspection, then after the second inspection that you fail, you go to the third inspection where we have a fine attached to it or an additional fee to that. So we already established guidelines into that. So if we need to enforce that or change that application fee or the return for fire
That could be
inspection,
done as
that
well.
could be done as well.
That could be done as well,
So
yes.
it's this keys and this elements that we can enforce without having this additional layer of, having a beverage license to a business that does not require.
Absolutely.
Okay. This all boils down to how to do enforcement and inspections, and it's like everything else in life. When you are put out of business because you don't follow the rules, you're gonna pay attention to the rules. When you have to pay $10 and wait 17 months till something gets done, you don't react to it as much. It isn't actually about the liquor versus the coffee. It's actually about, code enforcement is a real challenge between commerce and residential and new development and roads and all of that. When sometimes, it's a part of how do you get things done. So I think that's the conversation. So, everything said is accurate. It's just a question of how do you get to the point you want, which is that when you ask people to do stuff, they do it. Not spend 17 months or get inspected once in 3 years so they know they've got the time. or get people to get the right licenses in the first place, you know, so we have some folks in our village that they really should have just gotten the right licenses in the first place and done what they want to and not circumvent and circumvent and circumvent. So let's figure it out. I'm sort of hearing, so thanks for the clarification. Okay, so we're gonna go, I think, right to the OPD now. Is that what?
Before we
or
advance,
did you?
yeah, I just had
still
one.
have more on this?
I just
Okay.
had, yeah, I just had one more quick
Okay.
comment. So, hearing, my, beloved colleague, trustee Casada's opinion on it, I wanted to add my piece. We've been focusing on the fire inspection, but what I heard was it goes to OPD, it goes to finance, and it goes to the building department for an inspection. And so when we have seen that there are businesses that have struggles that are related to OPD, there are struggles, businesses that have struggles related to finance. And here we're talking with fire and building, but this is just one element that this particular chapter 147 gives us the ability to enforce all of these other pieces, which have lagging kinds of enforcement mechanisms, like the mayor just noted. So for my piece currently, I would be in favor of keeping the language as it is. As goofy as it sounds, as you need a license to sell milk, it sounds a little bit goofy, but there are larger reasons why that exists.
So now it's gonna, because when I walked in, I feel like there was a majority going one way and you know, the purpose of the work sessions is so that staff walks away with next steps and says, okay, the majority of the board said I gotta go, there's a fork in the road. I'm gonna go left or I'm gonna go right. So I'm back to, what do we want done now? Because I think you just changed.
No, so what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
again, there's two questions on the table. So the question number two, which is, should we change this to be limited to alcohol, is a separate question that Manny put his opinion in, I put my opinion in. But question number one is, what Stuart wants to know, am I good to move forward with the language that's in here?
Right.
And the answer is yes.
Okay, so we're good on that.
So I think maybe, you know, and again, maybe that's a different topic. I believe right now, as a concept, we have the majority of the board for question number two, which is look at the application for beverage and what is that defined? For me, in a way, just to help out a little bit, it's not for a bar that we've been struggling. So we've been struggling with the bar situations. For me, it's more like in a restaurant situation where they actually have a kitchen and they sell food and they serve food. You know, that why should we be limited to those people, to those type of businesses? You know, forcing them to have a beverage that you won't be able to sell anyway. You know, just to allow them to sell that as a right, just have a soda to be part of that, their menu, to have coffee part of their menu. I'm talking about restaurants only. If there's a way to define that portion, I'd be more than happy. I get the bars that we've been struggling with, and I know that. We've been dealing with that for years now. I'm talking about restaurants, people that actually have that opportunity or the ability just to sell those kind of drinks.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, there are also businesses that are neither a restaurant nor a bar, but that may want to serve coffee to people there or whatever. And so if you have a coffee machine where people can have a cup of coffee, do you need a beverage license for that? To have a coffee machine in your place of business that's used by the people that work there?
It's used by the people who work there? No, because that's not the kind of business we're discussing.
Okay.
It's not for sale or for consumption like that. No. It's not conducted for that purpose.
Right, it's for sale. It's like, okay.
So basically, this is, the law that's written now is, it's a safety net. Basically.
Yeah.
So I'm tending to lean towards what Omar's saying because I get your point, but it leaves them open to violations. And how do we hold them accountable if we don't have this safety net? I know it's another layer of they have to fill out an application, but I don't know. It's,
But if they sell an alcohol without a license, that's a whole different ballgame.
so I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, no matter what, it's a safety net for the village to be able to hold them up to the standards that's supposed to be. And if they can't sell their coffee and soda and beer or their coffee and soda and juice because there's an exit sign out, they'll get it fixed.
But they can get it fixed by, fire inspection as well. That's what I'm saying.
No.
There's other ways for us to control the same message without hurting that part of the business. That's all. Look, if the majority of the board feels that that's not appropriate, then that's the majority of the board, sure.
Any more discussion on this?
I would just like to have some conversations, whether they're, public or not, about just how many times has this happened where the beverage license has been the lever of enforcement? How often does that happen?
More often than not.
More often than not.
More-
So it
more-
happens often.
Yes,
It happens a lot.
does.
Yes. Yeah.
it does. And I would say for both establishments that sell alcohol and as well as those that don't.
So it works. It works to get these things fixed sooner than,
Facilitates compliance, in a way, that is quicker than other methods.
And even quicker is not days. It still takes quite a while. Is really the issue, it's the timing of it all. Okay. We're on to the next thing.
Okay, so, Mayor, while you were, we wanted to make sure that, you were able to enjoy the placemaking committee presentation. And we have our, placemaking committee co-chairs, Jeff Shoemaker and Joyce Markovitz here. They've been waiting patiently and being educated on many things we do in the village at the same time, in addition to placemaking. But I'd like to hand the show over to them and have them present, their placemaking committee presentation, which Maddie will put on the screen.
Thank you. Till you get the green light.
How's that?
Great.
Okay.
You sound
Thank
great.
you for inviting
Not
us
great?
here.
What are you not here?
No, I said you sound great. Joyce sounds great.
Oh, okay. Thanks for inviting us here tonight.
Oh, you're
So,
waiting for the presentation?
yes, we assembled a short PowerPoint. So, placemaking is about a lot of things. It's about breathing life into public spaces. It's about building community. It's about fostering civic pride. And we're really, really excited to share some ideas that we have with you. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide. So who we are, we're urban planners, artists, graphic designers, project managers, environmental psychologists, consultants, and theater directors. Together, we are placemakers. Placemaking is about shaping public spaces. It's a way to engage with and inspire community members to reimagine and reinvent these spaces. After all, people in public spaces are the heart of any community. So our collective vision is powerful. Placemaking strengthens the connections between people and where they live to create a better and happier community. Placemaking can include big and small things. All can be transformative. So these things can range from like a simple planter filled with flowers to a light installation projected on a wall to a large colorful mural like on a blank wall. And also it includes neighborhood-based performing arts. Next slide. So here we are, the passionate group of placemakers.
Well, better headshots than we have.
Yeah,
I gotta step up our presentations here.
Thank you. I particularly like Mark's with his construction helmet
Yeah.
on. Yeah, he has the best one. Next slide.
So we're gonna be handing the mic back and forth, but we'll keep it moving.
There are two mics, aren't there?
Yeah, this one I couldn't get to.
Oh, okay, no problem.
But,
No problem.
so yeah, so there's, these are just a list of the kind of first projects that we've been focusing on, including, many of the DRI projects, which will, hopefully soon meet with the team on the transportation hub. We have a sort of mural, we're hoping to do some murals around the village. The Five Corner intersection, there's some spaces there that we think are good candidates for something. As Joyce mentioned, we also have events that we're interested in supporting. So we're looking at a Porch Fest. We'll talk a little bit more about all these as we get into it. Market Square is a great opportunity to test out a series of pop-ups. We'll get into that. And the Haunted Kill has been a collaboration with Parks, with Bill at Parks, which I think you know some about. Next slide, please. So for the,
Can I ask you why they were all numbered one?
were they all numbered one?
I thought there was yeah, can you go back? Am I like not having?
Oh, they are. Look at that.
It
was
bullet points.
Oh,
You know,
I
we,
thought that the committee couldn't decide which is the highest priority, so they went for,
so
that's just, so it should just be, so these are not prioritized.
they're not
bullets,
prioritized.
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we,
I thought you're such a creative group, like you came up with a new way, okay, great.
these are all priorities now.
Okay.
It was a PowerPoint originally. We brought it into
okay.
Google, so I think that's what happened. Next, back to the next. So with the multimodal garage, we're very excited about this, as I know everyone who worked on the DRI is, you know, because it
Yeah.
unlocks so much in the village. But garages are great canvases for art as well. You know, even the one on the left, which is a pretty mundane garage, but you know, when you add some color to it, it suddenly becomes something else. The one in the middle is a recent one in Hoboken, which was a opportunity for the community to collaborate, and they hired an artist to do that. Next slide. Next.
Sorry, there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And even on the inside, these are some examples. You know, and as a planner, I tend to advocate for not having garages and not having people drive and people walking and biking. But I've actually found myself looking at a lot of garages lately because there's some really interesting ones. If you've been to Miami, for example, they have, you know, these incredible garages. In fact, I think these are from Miami. I know the one on the right is where, you know, even the signage, you know, in bold color, like you can just, you know, have an accent color can really go along.
Oh, you mean the purple one, like to the right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
cool. Okay.
Next slide. Lighting, you know, how these garages can be lit at night, also as a placemaking opportunity. And certainly with our hub as a sort of major gateway into the village for so many people that it could really become a kind of beacon and help people feel safer, frankly, as well. Next slide. And then these are maybe a bit crazy, probably more expensive to maintain, but there have been some examples where, you know, they have living plants on the exterior, which actually serves a function of filtering the air from the garage and, you know, from the car exhaust within the garage as well. Next. And then the last, probably the most crazy, these are in the design district in Miami. These are garages, you know, it's insane. Like the image on the right, you know, that's the entrance, that's the ramp into the garage. And it's, you know, it's a bit like Disney, but you know, I'm not saying we should do this, but I think, you know, again, just thinking about the garage as an opportunity. Next. You know, we've been sort of looking at some lots of blank walls around the village, you know, and there's lots of opportunity, but also complications when it's private property. We were looking at the wall, the open door wall, for example, on the trail. Next, we can just click through these quickly, the next few slides. We just took murals that exist elsewhere and just kind of put them on there because we wanted to show this to Open Door. You know, lots of opportunities here to really do something there as a kind of gateway. This is actually AI, that last image, and they kind of went a little bit further and added plants too. So you know, you never know what you're going to get with
Thank you,
AI.
Mr. Robot.
So you know, this because they have many projects currently. They said come back to us in a few years, and you know they're interested, but not now. So we're kind of looking around the village, and then next we look to Yonkers, who they just announced this new mural on, believe it or not, on MTA property. This is Metro North. And so we reached out to them and had a conversation, and the MTA will allow it as long as it can be removed. So this is actually a big metal panel, a series of metal panels that if they need to, they can take it off. But that's only if they need to. The idea is that it's there. And this has some augmented thing too with your phone. You can kind of interact with it, which is kind of interesting.
Also probably because it's the name of the location, so Metro North would be interested.
Yeah.
Since that's sort of right in there.
Yeah, exactly. So we actually reached out to Metro North, and we're gonna try
Great.
to continue that conversation. Next slide, because we have a number of locations that could use a little color. They're crying, yes, tears on the wall. Next, and then of course even there too, the underpass,
Is that Metro North property?
yeah.
So they're crying, but the people in charge of it aren't actually answering the call.
No,
We're crying. I don't know if they are.
Yeah, so they're not taking care of their property.
yeah, so I think there's lots of opportunity there.
Okay.
Next. I think this goes back. Oh, wait, no, so Five Corners, huge improvement, but there's space there to work with if we want to do stuff. And it could be next, New York, and other cities, communities have done a lot of things with just putting, there's the great landscaping edge that you already have at the Five Corners, but we could add pots, and maybe even, I know that in the city they had a lot of tropical plants in the summer, and sort of a nice way to add more green in a way that's pretty simple. And one of the sort of messages here, I hope, is that a lot of these things we think are relatively cheap. We're not asking for any specific budget money, but we think a lot of this can have a pretty large impact relative to the cost. Paint, maybe even some public art. It could be a temporary installation that could rotate, right in the center of the community. Could be interesting to think about. These are all just ideas. We haven't really gone very far. Next.
So this is another site that we think is begging for attention. And it's the skate park off of Snowden. And, it's really boring, and a lot of people use it and gather there. And there are things that we can do to really enliven the space and to make it more visually interesting. And a place that people really, really want to gather. Next slide. So again, with paint, it doesn't cost much, but look how dynamic a few gallons of paint and an artistic vision can be. Next slide. I particularly like this because they're chain link fences all over the place, and they're really unsightly, but you can weave plastic into them and create something really cool. Next slide. So this project is already underway, which is this Porch Fest, and it's basically a performing arts festival. And we met with Doug Tershin, who is the president of the Jug Tavern, and he's reaching out to his neighbors. There seems to be a lot of interest already in hosting this little festival that would include storytellers and musicians. And basically, you don't necessarily have to have a porch. Like, I think, the Tertians they have a fabulous backyard, so people would gather in their backyard for a performance, and it's sort of structured like multiple performances would take place within 2 hours or so, and you'd sort of move from house to house, so you'd get a tour of Sparta. So that's something that we're planning for this summer and the fall, or possibly the fall. We need to figure out a date. Next slide.
And the Porch Fest, what's nice there is that it can move throughout the community. Maybe it's in Sparta this year, or next year it could be. I mean, I talked to some of my neighbors on Hamilton Avenue. There's a lot of great big Victorian porches on that street that we could potentially, so, you know, it can bring community throughout in different parts of the village that maybe they don't ordinarily visit, you know, could be interesting.
Few houses and then it can grow bigger.
And so maybe there's a whole series of what, you know, the kind of pop-ups or things that are temporary, they're colorful, they tend to be cheap, things that can kind of happen quickly. So maybe I'll just go next and I'll go through these quickly because I know we're running out of time, but one of the areas that I'm most excited by is the village square as an opportunity to test out some of these ideas and as a way of engaging the community around where they would like to see the square going in the future. So whether there's an installation, you're sort of seeing this in cities and communities around the world of these just hanging colorful umbrellas up. You know, it sort of brings some color into a space. Next, asphalt art. You know, these are some great, and next, these are two great examples of, you know, where they can become interactive and kids start to skip and jump and, you know, it becomes a real magnet for younger children. Next, you know, swings. You know, Montreal probably is most famous for, you know, the swings that they're putting throughout the city. You know, maybe we can get a couple swings in there. Next. But and this is just an example in Philadelphia, they really embraced placemaking in a big way. And they have a lot of, you know, vacant, empty spaces throughout the city that, you know, this was a vacant lot filled with trash. And now look at it, you know, so the community came together. And again, all of this is temporary, you know, because I know the Village Square is part of a DRI project that's going to be a permanent change, but I think it would be a great way to test out some ideas with the community. Like, what kind of games would you like to see? You know, what are some of the things that we should think about, lighting and other things. You know, asphalt art is always interesting to think about. You know, the thing with any kind of paint on the ground is that it looks wonderful on day one, but, you know, a month or, you know, when cars are driving over, people walking, so it does require a certain level of maintenance, but again, as a sort of temporary thing, and it could be a rotating series of artists or murals that you can do. Next. And then just thinking about seating, I love the image on the left was, it's a contemporary art museum in Cape Town, and they have these, like, you know, sort of chairs that you can spin around. And I caught this guy who was like having a really good time. And, you know, and I think there's a lot that we could explore with seating, kind of playful seating as well, either temporary or more permanent. Next.
So this is just sort of summarizing that we are working on 7 permanent installations and 6 pop-ups. Next, please. Here's a little timeline, perhaps maybe a little too detailed for this meeting, but sort of signaling when our placemaking group first started and all of the things that we're working on and hope to accomplish this year. And
I should say we have a list of over 100 ideas, not only within the committee, but we've heard from, you know, some community members have written into the posts that you put.
Sorry, Jeff, I can't hear you terribly well.
The post, the weekly mayor's notice, we got a couple of responses there from the community. So we're hoping to get more and try to bring more into this process. So that's kind of the point of this. So anyone's listening out there, we want your ideas.
next. So in order to accomplish our goals, we need support in terms of logistics, help with planning and installation of some of these projects. Like if we were to do the umbrella installation, we'd need help hanging cables and installing the umbrellas. You know, other types of installations, sculpture, you know, closing off streets, should we want to put some asphalt art down, et cetera. So funding, I mean, of course, we will come to you and we have specific requests for But we would like to perhaps discuss at a future time an annual budget for placemaking, which I think would be really, really helpful. Like Jeff said, we can do a lot of projects rather inexpensively. I think others, especially if it's like a large mural, and we want, we're to hire professional muralists to create these pieces, can be more expensive. But I think it'll be a combination of things. I mean, one of our committee members had an idea for, just using all sorts of like old containers, including like a rowboat as a planter. I mean, how cool would that be? So, that's not very expensive, but it's, and we might even be able to get various nurseries to donate plants. So, but anyway, sorry.
I would just say, I think the committee, we've been meeting monthly, but I think we're eager to actually get out and do some of this. So we're even willing to volunteer and paint and plant and do stuff, because I think we've been talking a lot and coming up with some really great ideas, but we're ready to get out there and actually do some of these things.
And we've been talking about collaborating with the Youth Bureau, with
Yes, we reached out,
Parks and Rec.
right, to specifically about to the Youth Bureau, specifically about the Snowden Skate Park. We sort of sent them a few questions to answer about like what they would like to see there. We also have plans to, when the weather gets a little bit nicer, to interview the skaters who use the park to get their feedback. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks. I think there'll probably be some questions. Was your picture up there with the rest of the committee?
No.
Ms. Liaison?
I'm a liaison. I'm not on the committee.
Well, you're a liaison.
No, I don't need to have my picture everywhere.
Let's
It's
start
okay.
with you.
I don't have one I
That's
like. so.
Because I think part of setting this up, so this is just for the record, a new committee, first year, right? It's first year. And so we interviewed lots of interested parties to this, as was said, have met. So Dana, why don't you're the liaison, and it was actually your desire to have this committee, and you did some research and brought it in front of the board. So if we could hear from you any additives to what's happening, and then open it up.
Well, it's, not a shortage of ideas, right, guys? Logistically, they span they run the gamut. And we find that, some of these are very long-term events, tend to be shorter term, murals, long-term, DRI, long-term, medium, and then you can have kind of medium range stuff, but it's a lot of talking to other communities. How'd you do it? Other communities are doing it. How'd you do it? We can do it. Right? And it's done all the time. So, we're hoping to have some short-term wins and then put some longer-term stuff into play. And see what we can do to create things that everybody in the community will want to experience and enjoy, that will bring everybody in the community together, people who may not normally be together, like a lot of our events do, like Halloween and stuff. I am personally am super excited about the Haunted Kill. This is going to be in collaboration with Parks and Rec, who had the same idea we did, so we know it's a good one. And it would basically take the Greenway and turn it into a haunted attraction for middle school and up. So it wouldn't necessarily be for little kids. They'll have their little stuff. And then there might be a band, food trucks, make it, I mean, we're here in Halloween land, we're in Halloween country. And it'd be great to have, especially to take advantage of such a unique feature that we have. And I think it could be super spooky and fun and get a lot of people to come. And I don't know if it's one night or more, but Bill's like one, but something we can discuss, but we need to start. I think that Bill's idea, which is a good one, is to collaborate with the Westchester Collaborative Theater with their writers and actors. Keeps texting me. And with that you're right, with their writers and silence.
That's another way.
We're
White silence.
We're against the wall.
Yeah, just-
How do you do it?
Look, there's a
Just
little
there.
thing
I
there, now
know.
it's on top.
I'm not very tech savvy,
Forget
so.
to do it.
So anyway, yeah, we gotta get going on that, but coming up with a theme and how we're gonna do it, and it's probably gonna be people hiding and jumping out and being spooky, so. But I think it'd be really neat, so I'm excited about that. Right. You want to-
Thank you for the great presentation and for joining us tonight. I'll share my thoughts, which only represent me, and so take them for what they are. I liked a lot of what was here. I think some of the things that are for me helpful for you to know as guiding principles. What I would love to see, and again, this only represents my opinion, is pieces that are rooted in our history that kind of echo some element of our history, of our long history, but also recent history, of the history of the peoples that live here, that kind of thing. I think that that would be really substantive. I love that so many of these, the emphasis is on the aesthetic and having things that are aesthetically pleasing. To me, that is important. It should look nice. And I also like spaces where you can embrace the weird and the whimsical and that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be so cut and dry and boring. I also would encourage the possibility for public-private partnerships. So you take, for example, around Open Door, how you're looking at that wall, but might there be healthcare related placemaking opportunities near Open Door that kind of emphasize time to, get your flu shot and this and that, whatever, that are representing elements of our community, but that are and emphasized in a really interesting, beautiful way. It also may help to offset some costs, because if you have a business or a set of businesses that is looking to say, hey, we have like a lot of barbershops, for example, in the village. Might there be some sort of salon, barbershop kind of placemaking opportunity? There are people that come from all other kinds of communities here for a Vaza or a Fade Factory or whatever. And so why not center those as well? And they can help maybe offset some of the costs. I also want to emphasize the opportunity to engage with particular communities, because you mentioned, for example, the asphalt art and opportunities for kids to play and kind of doing hopscotch and things like that. So whether it's youth or seniors or people with disabilities or new arrivals for whom English is not their first language, or whomever else, any other populations that when you are sitting around the room thinking about who is not represented here, that might benefit from our next project, whether it's something large or small. So those are just some of the guiding principles that I would add, but I really enjoyed it. And basically anything that you do is going to be good. There's no bad. I will say this in closing. Some people won't like whatever it is that you do. That's natural. That is normal. And so know that you have my support, even when people say, why'd you do the horses? The horses are ugly. And then it becomes like the thing we're known for is these damn horses. And so there you
Yeah,
go.
I think that's why we showed a lot of abstract art, because we were playing it safe. But of course, we want to represent everybody in the community, and we want input from everybody in the community, because placemaking is really all about like gathering everybody up and getting their feedback and doing these projects together.
Mhm.
And because, right, they reflect our values, like our village and what it looks like reflect who we are and what we care about. So.
Great presentation, very exciting stuff. So I'm looking forward to that wall on the train station getting done. I look at it every morning.
There's one that's like crumbling on the other side. There are like pieces of it where the pigeons roost. I mean, it's a real disaster.
Once you start, you'll see walls everywhere.
Oh, no. No, nice job. Thank you.
Manny?
Thank you. Just looking at the sort of the pictures and your statement that you made, who you guys are, is just it's really amazing just to see how a group of people with different ideas and different backgrounds in a way come together with this presentation. So it's really Who did the presentation, by the way? Who worked on the
It was
presentation? It was very much a whole group. It was really interesting, you know, it reminds me to like presentations that I have done for school and things of that nature. So it's really well done, better than I could have done, especially with the AI portion. I think it's fantastic stuff. So I think one of the challenges that you guys have, and I haven't heard yet, is obviously that the partnership, you ask, what the village can do for you guys, sure, is that portion. And the money wise, how is that being allocated to you? One of the elements I think I'm missing right now, is you talk about different spaces, but we can have a lot of stuff in our parks besides just Snowden Park. You have National City Park that they has lines of pavement that you can bring to the playground. You have other parks that have the ability to do that. We don't have to do, I will hate to spend money in Market Square right now because a lot of the stuff is going to be temporary. And a lot of people may not use it the way that we want it or you guys are envisioning. But in the parks, you have kids, you have adults, you have parents that take their kids to play in there. And I think I love the wall with the chain link fence and all these other, recycling plastic could be. It doesn't have to be something that you go and buy. Sure. It could be recyclable. So now you integrating a lot of the elements. Something that I think will be helpful, maybe not now, or maybe now, if you are focusing on doing something in the downtown itself, there is money allocated. Because part of this, we did have we still have, I don't know if we still have it or not, the downtown development group store with the Ginsburg. I don't even know if that group is still.
This is, no,
It's not, it's there, but it's not there.
no, it's in the operating dollars.
No, I'm sorry.
It's in the operating dollars.
No, I'm not talking about that. I know we have money set aside, but I'm talking about the group itself.
Disbanded. When
So-
we created this, we
No,
disbanded that.
no, I understand. No, we didn't, we didn't do it.
Yeah, we did. We contacted them.
No, yeah, it was the arts. Yeah.
We also contacted them. There isn't a group. There's nobody in
Okay.
that group.
So, and anyway, there is money set aside, but that money is literally strictly to be used for the downtown itself. So if there's a concept or an idea that I think you guys are talking about Market Square, instead of using the money from the village, I'll be more than okay to utilize that money into something that you guys can pick out of, these ideas or other ideas that you may have that you'd be able to do this. I mean, look, we did the bicentennial 2013 with the arts and sculptures, and some of them we have them here, some of them they're in the library, some of them they used to be on the community center, and we have the big one down. So I'm gonna call it the arch down in the waterfront. So at that time the board pledged to the arts, and I think this is a compliment that will be very useful to our community. But again, for now, my suggestion, my 2 cents will be if you guys want to start doing something, we'll be in the downtown. And again, I'll be more than happy, and I can only speaking for myself, be in favor of utilizing the money that we have set aside for the downtown. Everything else, I think we can work on the parks and we can work on some of the walls that are available throughout the village, and kind of do it that way and kind of give them a little peeks here and there to the community and what you guys doing and what it's all about, and have an integration doing it that way.
Great.
So,
Great. No, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I always go last. So great presentation. There were a few questions that you asked, so we can hear you guys up here, folks. So budgets, right? So you asked about funding. So there are 2 ways to do money, right? You get some amount that we allot, and we don't allot, we allot different committees, like mostly for training. And then you say, okay, what can we do for that money? And then you try to push, 1 project, 5 projects into that bucket and say, okay, you said $10,000 and we can do these 2. And then it starts being, or you have to come and say, we've now researched, these are our top 3 that we want to do. And they come to X, Y, and Z. And then we can approve it. So it all has, because you're a municipal, you actually, our volunteers are doing it I mean, you're not a nonprofit, right? You don't have a board. You have to come here. So those are two ways that people can get funding, and everybody fights for funding. So, you know, the projects you have, there are a lot of them. And I agree with Dana, you like sort of have buckets. One is there are projects in play and we'd like to really make them pop. I personally don't like using people. It doesn't matter whether it's history, it doesn't matter whether it's current, none of that matters. And the reason many places end up not doing people, I think Tarrytown actually took theirs down, is because no matter what you do, historians start saying, well, it's not accurate, this isn't accurate, and it becomes inaccurate within 5 years. Unless it's a temporary thing, then it's a whole different story, right? So they go either abstract or they go into a thing like, oh, we're a waterfront, so let's do boats, or let's do fishing, you know, so they go into that mode, or it's a park, so we'll do like all different kids, even though, and we'll make it abstract kids, right? So I think that's for you guys to figure out. I don't have an opinion. I have an opinion about like why I understand why other communities start in one place and end up in another, because everybody has a history. Well, Miami has a history, and you know, they chose after a while, but they also have a district. They actually have a tour book with a district. It isn't just murals. So the reason I'm not a fan of murals is because they start popping here and there, and the artist owns the art unless you do a contract with them. They ain't cheap. This sort of thing that says, well, you just are an artist. So in White Plains, they paid the artist 40 grand. For me, that's not cheap. You know, for somebody else, $40,000 to pay an artist to do a huge building, not so much. So this idea of cheap or expensive really needs to be molded into a number that people can get their arms around, because there are people asking us for money for other things that they think are important. I think that a guiding principle has to be, why are you doing any of this? So some places say it's good. You have a mural district and it's books all over the world and people come and look at it. So it's good for tourism. And we have 10,000 people look at Miami in the mural district, or in Portugal in their mural district, or wherever it is. Proof positive that a mural district is really good for. Okay, if it's to brighten and liven things that just should be, like the skateboard, like that's, why not make it look so the kids when they come there like get excited, right? It's not a cost benefit analysis. That's a human, like, it's ugly, let's make it pretty. Like that's the guiding principle. We want to, I know you don't want to be the beautification committee. I totally get that, and you shouldn't be. If it's like so kids can play and be interactive on things, then that's another guiding. So I know you've almost done it in buckets, but that would also be helpful. Like you want to do the whole event thing. So every nonprofit has events. We got a couple hundred of them in this village, and they all do events of some sort, mostly fundraising events. So I would just say, like, figure out what the guiding principles for event, bring community together. So we want to start here, and then we want to. Fantastic. So the idea of what Omer said with guiding principles is super helpful to really, and some of it could simply be, it's good for the environment. So the parking garage, like in Mexico City, they use planters because it naturally rains there almost every afternoon and they get sun. So they don't actually take care of it. They just stick plants with planters, like thousands of them on the highways, on all the poles. It's totally an environmental thing. You know, it's the exhaust fumes that they have. They're bigger than New York City. It's like 20 million people in Mexico City. So there are many, so that's a reason. Like it's a totally like the garage will look better, and it's an environmental if we do plants. The plant thing is great. One of them is probably very expensive to maintain and one of them isn't. So the guiding principle could be to enhance something, right? So I think you have it all. Like for me, you've got, and I know you have other ideas. This was like, I'm sure the biggest meeting you had was to narrow down for the presentation. I'm getting a sense that that probably was the biggest challenge for you.
Well, we actually want to accomplish, you know, these
We wanna get
projects.
going.
So we shrunk our list way down to like, this is what we think we can.
Plus, I mean, we also want to leverage.
Because they're all good.
We want to leverage the work that's already happening in the village, like the DRI projects, you know, and as much to your point about public-private partnerships, if we can get some contribution and have it be
Yeah.
part of a project, you know, I think.
Yeah, but I also don't want the money to be an obstacle. That's also a problem because you're always coming across. So we own the parks. The village actually owns not a nonprofit, parks have laws and regulations, but we know those laws. And so actually, in some ways, it's easier to start with parks because the people sitting here and the staff can say, yeah, you can do that. And this is what it'll cost. And this is a low maintenance idea and this is a high maintenance. And you don't have to get all the buy-ins. Private, public, With a big one like Open Door, they can probably get a grant. It's good for them, it's good for the village, but that'll take like longer, but in the long run would be great. So I think you really do have, as Dana said, you hit the bucket, so we can do this quickly, we got events, and then there's long-term. Metro North, I can't think of a reason why that shouldn't be like a project. I can't even imagine why we wouldn't make that whole area. I'm sorry.
They're so, it's MTA.
We're. No, but others
We'll
have
get
done it
through.
already, and I understand the temporary, because one of the problems with murals is who owns it and who fixes it. So if it's on brick and there's a leak and you have to fix it, I just feel like Paul and his folks are not sitting there and redoing art, right? They can't. It's artwork. They can't like sit there and redo it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a piece of art. So now in the city, they actually, as you know, use laminate and they use all sorts of stuff. They are not doing any more painting on bricks and stuff, because within 5 to 8 years, with the kind of weather we have in Northeast. So I love it if it's temporary, and the pop-ups are great, you know? So I do think you have buckets, and I think you just need to present to the board, like, look, in this bucket, we're ready to go like tomorrow. And we think it's going to be X amount of dollars. And we can start with this, and I would start with Metro North like yesterday, because it'll take you a while. I can't imagine anybody that isn't going to be happy about seeing that being done.
Yeah.
You know, so some things are just slam dunks. Market Square, as Manny said, you know, it's like the businesses and this and that. The porch thing, I love that idea. You know, it's managed. You have to talk to the police too, because when people start sitting on sidewalks and sitting in streets where cars are passing, somebody has to then manage it. But these are minor issues. These are like little pieces in the way. This is not the biggest deal.
And just so you know, we do have our guiding principles on our website.
Okay.
So, and we will attach one to each project as you suggested.
Yeah, so people know why you're doing it and, you know,
Yeah.
stuff. And we should know. So the board, when it votes, actually, instead of the 5 of us having discussions with each other up here, well, I like this and I don't like that. If we understand the purpose and we agree with the purpose, we for sure would agree with the end result, right? It's the problem is that sometimes when you don't get it's like a chemistry problem. If you don't get why it's being done, you're always going to argue about how to get there. If you know the purpose of it, you then are just discussing money and time. And you know, and you have landscapers on this committee, right?
Yep.
You have
Yes, yep.
experts.
Do.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, and all the stuff on the sidewalks and the roads, you know, those are really cool. And you know, I don't know what the purpose of them, except that they're great looking and people love it. You know, so and I don't know if you're thinking of creating a mural district or just a couple of areas, but that's like down the road, right? That
Yeah.
evolves.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is gonna evolve
Yeah.
as we go, you know, and so we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we have a pretty long list already, but we'll take you up on the offer. We'll come back with some,
Sure.
with some.
Well,
ideas.
any committee that were, you know, we ask that they come once a year to present, but they
Yeah.
can always call or through their liaison, bring up under new business if there's an issue, can always do that. You send an email. I mean, this is just so the public has like, who are you guys? What are you doing? Now that you put everybody's names and pictures, they'll be getting phone calls. It's all good. And you know, we do have a very large Spanish speaking community. And this is my own personal belief, is that anything we do that the village does should have an education piece. So anytime something could be written on why this is here and what its purpose is and how you might replicate it. So in Ossining, in the Market Square, that thing that says Ossining, that stage area, I didn't know till months ago that was done by the whole community. Those are pieces of tile that was done by a woman who coordinated. Everybody went and broke pots and whatever they had at home. And they all stood there and they glued them onto those panels that we still see today. But there's nothing actually written that explains how it came about in the 90s. So, you know, I moved here in the 90s. I think it looks pretty, and it's actually removable panels because they understood what happens when you don't do it that way. And not that I know if you can actually remove them, you know, this many 30 years later, but it was a community event. And, you know, there's a whole story to that. And so anytime you could educate about, hey, you know, this is the purpose, that would be, and if you could do it in multiple languages or with a QR code that explains, would be just lovely. I just didn't see it here, but that's probably a detail you guys already have thought about.
And yeah, I think, yeah, QR codes are great. I mean, that's a way to.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you've thought of all the detail, but you're limited to the presentation, which was terrific. and lovely. And I like the number ones down the line. I'm gonna start. Maddie's already thinking, this is great. I could just put number one and we don't even have to decide in the presentations what our priorities are anymore. Do you have any other questions for us, or
Not at this time.
are you walking out of here feeling like we're ready to go and we know which
Yeah,
way? And
Yeah, no,
like
we
what-
were, yeah,
okay.
absolutely, absolutely. A lot of
Great.
great ideas. So,
Well, I heard like at
Good
least two
feedback.
trustees saying you can have all the money you want. So, you know, like, so I would just immediately take that.
As long as you do it in the downtown, that's not village residents' fund
I'm
money.
so glad this meeting is recorded. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. That was a really great No, go ahead. You can leave. You can leave. That was a great presentation. You're welcome to stay. We do have an exciting, next next on the agenda, we have Lieutenant Drew Marano. Drew has just secured what is it, 150, 175,000?
You can sit here.
Yeah, so worth of grants. Drew does a lot of the grant work for the police department. A lot of this is done through Department of Homeland Security.
Yes, ma'am.
And he's here to tell you about his latest wins and what the police department's going to do with that money.
Thank you guys for having me,
Okay.
first of all. This is-
Welcome.
So we were fortunate enough to receive two federal grants from Homeland, well, actually state grants. It comes from federal money to the state, Homeland Security to us. The first of which, the larger of the two, is the New York State Targeted Tactical Team Grant. We got awarded $75,000 for that, which is the full amount. Last year, we got a partial award for that. And this year we were able to secure a full amount for that. That money is utilized to pay for training, equipment, basically life-saving equipment that's vital for the survival of our tactical team, and the training is vital for the survival of our tactical team to maintain our state accreditation, and it's used for those purposes. It buys things such as night vision goggles, surveillance equipment, ballistic vests, things to keep us safe, and things to it's mainly focused on just de-escalating situations. It's a life-saving equipment that can either avoid a face-to-face confrontation or allow us to de-escalate situations in such a way that things end peacefully. And unfortunately, all that stuff is high in technology and costs big money, so that's why the grant is such a high amount. This is our third time of receiving it. We got it. Let me preface this. All these grants are, we're working off of the fiscal year 2021. So they're about 4 years behind.
Oh, wow.
And they keep trying to catch up and saying, oh, we'll get 2 grants out this year, and red tape gets caught up and it never works out. So this is we've received the fiscal year 2019 tactical grant, the fiscal year 20 tactical grant, which was a partial award. And then this time we got the full award again for the 2021 award.
What's the difference between the two grants?
Oh, well, the second grant I haven't talked about yet.
Oh, okay.
The second grant is also through Homeland Security. It's a critical infrastructure key resource grant. So it's a grant that's aimed at target hardening areas of mass gathering and areas of critical infrastructure. We also received that's for the amount of $50,000. We received that last year. I'm working on a project now to target hardening Lewis Angle Park. It's an area of mass gathering. We have the summer concert series there. We have the fireworks. It has the train station, the ferry, Sing Sing's to its south, Con Ed substation to the north. The oil tanks that I don't think are being utilized anymore, but for a while were being utilized are there. It's a very unique area in New York State, and we're working on a project to target harden that with mainly camera security, because it's a set of eyes that can be there 24 hours a day that we can monitor from the police desk 24 hours a day. The 2021 grant, which we just got, is also $50,000. That's aimed at target hardening the Five Corners, an area that they were just talking about. We frequently have a lot of complaints from store owners about people in that area that they wouldn't like around that area. People are doing some unsettling things sometimes in there. And it's an extra set of eyes for us that we can keep an eye on what's going on in that area. Try to keep the store owners happy, make the patrons feel safe. It helps us to better target times when things are going on. We can deploy resources there more easily if we have a set of eyes on the area. It also, both projects include license plate readers, which are a huge technology for us. If you have someone with dementia that wanders off,
and, gets into their car and drives away. When you're on the highway, you see the signs that say, look for New York ABC 123, vulnerable adult missing. That's huge for us. If you have a kidnapping, God forbid, something of that nature, it's huge. We can tell you which direction, if the car passed by our license plate reader, we can tell you, well, the suspect left this, heading northbound on Spring Street or eastbound on Main Street or whatever. So they're very useful tools for us in modern day law enforcement.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm like, not sure. Does that mean if it's still done, if we're still in 2021, does that mean you automatically are getting like the next 3 years?
No, it's
Or
continuing
you're still
applying.
just 3 years behind or 4
They're
years?
incredibly competitive grants.
Yeah.
We're very lucky to get them. I'm over the moon about it. I think it's great. It's a big resource for us as a community. And I think, working in conjunction with these folks that were just here to beautify the place and make it a safer community for everybody as a lifelong resident. I moved here in 1980 and, my heart goes out to this place, and I think keeping it safe is of the utmost importance.
No, it's great. And the technology, great and expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it can
But
it can put
life-changing.
us in a position of advantage where we can solve things that maybe 10 years ago, the technology wasn't there. We couldn't solve.
Right.
That maybe today we can solve. So
Great. Great. Questions? Yes. I'm seeing microphones.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you. That's a lot of work and unfortunately fortunately and unfortunately in some time, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we're going to give it better technology that we could have gotten
Mm.
2021.
yeah.
So,
Big
but
change.
thanks.
Yeah, it's been advantageous in that way. That,
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
great.
it's become more affordable. We can buy more things now that
Question, and I'm sorry, and I should have asked, installation and all the stuff that's done by an outside person, correct?
As of right now, I'm working with a member of the county police department, Brian Hess, who's a lieutenant there. He's like their camera guru, so he's kind of been like the guy I've been bouncing ideas off of, and he's put me in touch with folks that can install it, and the grant covers the cost of installing the equipment as well.
Now, in regards to that, is that something that we may have to add, or they're going to be using the existing infrastructure that we have at those locations?
It's all done with existing infrastructure. There's a site survey that I have to do and submit to FEMA
Okay.
to make sure that we're not disturbing any soil, any historic landmarks, so on and so forth. It's mainly using just utility poles that are already pre-existing, and I try to not disturb anything that's important.
Obviously, that coordination has been going with the engineer as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great. My biggest question is around, I have two, one around the mechanics. So, is this the kind of grant where we spend the money and then we send them the receipts and then they reimburse us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I hate those.
I mean,
Are they all like that? I like when they cut us a check. That's way better.
No one in the government cuts you a check for like
terrible.
a grant.
There is
That's
one I
not the
have
way it
on the
works.
back burner I'm waiting to hear about. That is a upfront grant.
Nice. Okay.
But the last correspondence I had with them was the 31st of January. I just emailed them Friday and said, hey, I haven't heard from you guys since the 31st of January.
What year was that?
That's this
Okay.
year.
21 here.
Yeah. So, there is one coming up. Hopefully, if we get awarded that one, that'll be the money up front. Most of the grants are the municipality lays out the money and then we have to submit for reimbursement and get the money back.
Yeah, that makes sense. The second question that I have is around kind of the life cycle of these things. So oftentimes we hear, we got the grant and then we may hear, okay, and then we installed the thing or now we're using this new system. But oftentimes that's where it ends. What would be helpful for us is there's a natural cadence come budget time when you're looking at, hey, here's what we need in terms of resources. It would be helpful for equipment like this, once it gets implemented, for you to say, by the way, here's an update on the equipment that we've put in the last year, for example, and how it's going. That context is often helpful for us to know what has been even a better value than you expected, what has been kind of underused that you think is a lesson learned. Hey, we thought we were going to use this more, we're not using it as much, and that's informing now what we're putting forward. So kind of tracking the use of it and reporting during budget.
I think that's an excellent idea. Also some of the funding allocated, let's say we get the 2022 grant next year. The money can be used to maintain the equipment that we currently have. So if we have money, equipment that's been installed, let's say the license plate reader camera becomes outdated technology and there's something new that we can't even think about yet that's come out, we can use the money to augment an existing project that we already have. So some of my hopes are to keep these things going and keep improving. Thank you.
Is the police security pieces, does that extend to a thing like the multimodal? Like that's a village ownership, right?
So one of the things that, for our new projects, the water treatment plant, it will be considered when we do multimodal as well as, security systems in the new, renovated rec center, all of those projects, it's actually things we're talking about now. So that would be likely if there was some sort of surveillance for the, multimodal site, most of that would be headquartered at the police department because they would be looking after when things were more likely to
Because
maybe
that's actually
go
the
awry.
issues with parking lots in the northern part of the state.
Oh,
like-
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Troy, Binghamton, Buffalo, where they become hangouts, where they become problem areas. And I don't think the technology was ever there, today it is, but maybe that could be a part of
They
the
could
next
certainly-
ask. Since it is village, it's no different than a waterfront,
Yeah.
really.
And it is an area of critical infrastructure, parking
Right,
garages, so
right.
easily be tied into one.
Right.
Maybe that could be an additive to this kind of grant in addition to.
Absolutely, and that's why we've invited, I actually think Drew's gonna be there on Monday night, when we do the stakeholder meeting, and we have fire department coming too, because those are aspects we'd like to talk about now in the design phase to make sure that these things can be accommodated once the structure's built.
Right, okay, great. Because the police piece of it is so different than when a developer does it or an engineer. I mean, there's just such a different focus, and this would be
It's a different
Perfect.
perspective.
perfect, from a grant perspective, because it just makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah.
It's fabulous, thank you.
Thank you for
The
your
reason I
time.
asked that you be put in the agenda is because when I read the email that it was so congratulatory, it's like, it should be memorialized. The public, if they want to look at the video a year from now, they're like, wow, this is,
Thank you, thank you.
this is really, it's like a big deal. It's, we got 2 grants, it just sort of, it's not we just got, it's like the police department out of its way and guys had to do the work and had to justify and compete and, it's great. And
Thank you.
It's super important.
Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for
Thanks.
the congratulations. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Have a good night.
You too.
Our next conversation.
You forgot Dana.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, Lieutenant. I'm
Elsie, we
sorry.
have
I
one
had
more.
Dana do this. I told the 2 of you. I didn't realize. I didn't get.
we had more input.
Thank you, and I'm sure this is exactly what you thought you'd be doing when you became a police officer, right? Was filling out grant forms and stuff, because it's complicated, isn't it?
It is complicated. I'll tell you, we applied for some of these grants 3 and 4 times, as a patrolman. I mean, I'm a lieutenant now, but I started working on this as a patrolman.
Oh,
And,
my.
luckily finally figured out, what they're looking for and how.
Yeah, they don't make it easy.
There's a
No.
formula to it, and I think kind of,
Just
It's like running
trying
the
to sign off
gauntlet.
on the grants.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part for me, trying
Yeah.
to figure out.
yeah, there's a
What I'll do.
lot of complicated computer programs, and I'm computer illiterate.
Well, you
Probably.
did just fine.
Well,
Still
my
did
best.
fine.
The woman who administers the grant is very friendly and nice to Drew and I and walks us through everything when we have to do
She
the
got
updates and
released.
reports.
No.
She got promoted and we have a new woman now.
Oh,
But
no.
she seems just.
Oh,
just
no.
as eager to work with us. I was actually on the
Okay.
phone with her. The morning that we got the emails, I was on the phone with her about the project we're working at the waterfront. And then she called me that afternoon and she goes, I couldn't say anything this morning. I knew we were gonna be working together. She seems just as friendly
Okay,
and
good.
nice. And
That's good.
yeah, it's good to have a good working, to be honest with you, she's the one who put me on. I was started with the tactical grants. She told me, why don't you apply for this critical infrastructure grant? You guys are eligible for this. Why not apply for it? And I did, and Heather was a pleasure to work with. We now have a lady named Christine, who seems just as
Wonderful.
good to work
Oh,
with.
good. I'm
Oh, that's
glad.
great.
Yeah.
So just one quick thing. Kudos to you
Thank you.
and putting that sign, well, getting the grants, but this is leading into our next topic, but putting the portable new sign down at the riverfront and getting the message out.
Thank
That
you.
was golden.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time.
Take care. Next, the next and final item on our agenda tonight, we'll be talking about a message board, an LED message board that we've been contemplating, and this is something that Trustee Fritchie has been championing, and our village engineer and head of DPW is here as well, Paul Fraley, to discuss LED signage in the village.
Thank you. So hopefully you all read the email from Jamie last week, which kind of spelled everything out to where we are up to this point. And we did meet with the vendor back in February, myself, Paul, Karen, and Jamie, and we discussed the two locations that you wanted discussed. Well, they discussed it. And lengthy discussions on both areas. The key statement that he made about the Market Square signage location is that not all of your, because it would be a one-sided sign, and not all of your traffic patterns would be able to see the sign. So when we looked at we looked up here, and with the two signs, this was the favorable location. We narrowed it down to the two places. So that was the discussion. It also states in the email that once the sign's mounted, it's not recommended that you take it down. So with all the upcoming construction within the next year or two in Market Square, it could create a problem with the sign. So again, you know, hopefully you read the email and you took it in. Approximate cost for the sign and the installations, 53,000 here at Croton Avenue, and it would be 40,000, give or take, down at Market Square. So with that, I'm open for discussion. Two signs,
Oh, two signs.
two signs versus one sign.
Okay.
It's actually two separate signs.
I generally am in favor of doing it here in Village Hall. If you go to Yorktown Heights, they have the kind of, it's more like the Market Square version where you can't see it from everywhere, but they have multiple signs. So that's one of the ways that they have kind of addressed that. I think that the only question that comes up for me is around cost and the value for the money, right? How much is $50,000 getting us, or 53 or whatever the exact number is? If we're finding that we are able to get key pieces of information out to the public that we otherwise either would have a tough time doing or other methods aren't really working, then great. Then I think it could be money well spent. But if we're saying, hey, we have $50,000 and we're looking for the best way to increase communication with the public around what's going on, what are options that we have, and we put this on the list, I don't know if we said, hey, placemaking committee, you have $50,000, you're also up for attacking this problem, if the end result would be in the sign. The last thing is longevity. If the sign is up for 10 or 15 years, then if you annualize the cost, then maybe it actually works out fine, because over that same amount of time, it's relatively small year to year. But if it's the kind of sign that will exist for 5 or 6 years, or maybe anything really less than 10, then it's harder to justify the cost. Those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I'm a little bit with what Omar said. I think it depends. Concept wise is a great concept. For me right now, there's so much stuff going on in the village. I just don't see the value of this sign at this point. So I'll say no to this for now.
You're saying no to the sign?
To the sign.
On
correct.
either location?
Correct.
At this
Yep.
moment?
Yep.
You might bring this back up. Okay.
Yep.
Tina? Deputy Mayor had to leave, something came up, so we're not voting today, it's no big deal.
I think that, you know, as projects go, it's a pretty small project, I think. I think 16 Croton is a good location. And I mean, I'm not against it. They are more and more popular. I don't know if you're gonna get the audience you want in front of 16 Croton, but There are enough people, I mean, a lot of people go by there, but, it seems like something that we could do, without too much trouble. Paul completely be wrong on that, but I don't know, I support the idea. Why not?
Thank you. So, feel like this is on, okay, great. So here's where I am. I think it's actually an important project, and I appreciate that trustee Fritchie, we do have projects and trustees sort of raise their hand, go, I'll run with this one, so that all 5 of us don't need to meet on every single thing that comes in front of us. So for me, it's really about what's the purpose of the sign. I mean, the one in front of the high school, good location, Route 9, because but, I look at what they put up there. It's not a heck of a lot that they put up. I actually am 50-50 whether it goes, municipal building, which has its own crowd and traffic, and whether it goes down by Market Square. The reason I like Market Square, and Bob knows this, is that my feeling is that it hits a very large crowd, a much larger crowd. It hits the cars, it gets a lot of the commuters that may not come up this way. I don't have a count, however, I don't have data, I just have my living here for 30-something years. You got a lot of walking folks, you get a lot of business folks, you get a lot of commuters that would see that sign in Market Square. And the thing that tips it from 50-50 to like 51 or 52 to 49 is I thought that the sign would be really well used, actually, for all the projects that are going on down there. Like Wednesday, June 15th to, Thursday, whatever, we're doing this, this, and that, because the people who are actually in the downtown are the most affected. Not necessarily the person who makes heads north, makes a right on 133 and heads home, who never actually goes down. I lived here for years without going downtown. I mean, honestly, for years, I did not, I commuted. So I guess I went through, I zipped in, I zipped out at one point, then I didn't. And there was not much for me to do down there. But now we got, the farmer's market crowd. We've got all sorts of events that happen. We've got musical events in the summer. So my thought was that sign would actually be better placed down there, because it also would talk about the projects. What's going on in the community center, what's going on in the Olive Opera House, when are the roads closed, things like that, that directly affect exactly that area. I'm not quite sure why it's only one. I would have actually thought we would have done 2, etc. We also can say, we like this idea, and we're all like about 50-50. Manny is not in favor for now. You might change your mind. And we can say the project should be at 2025. Let's say yes on it and do it like we have other projects to do. Everything doesn't have to be done. We say yes today and it starts tomorrow. We act like it does, but it doesn't. We could say, we like the project. We have a majority that believes it should be at 16. This is the reasons why, because you have to lay it out, right? You have to find the spot, you got to put in the wiring and all that. I assume it's all done on a mobile phone or something, or some laptop, right?
Yeah, it's all
Correct.
done.
Yeah,
It's all done.
remotely, so
Yep.
that's not the issue. There's wiring in both locations, there's a space in both locations. I think we thought maybe be by the community center, we understand, it's Route 9, it's a state, we get that. So I'm like 50-50, I'm just leaning more towards the Market Square because it literally affects just a bigger crowd, both the commuters, the increasing number of people that live there, and many of our businesses. But Route 130, this route right in front of this building also has a lot of traffic, and actually people who walk. They walk from the community center to the library, so I'm like 50-50 on it, and people, but I also appreciate what Manny's saying, like, I think we also have to decide when we should do this project. We have so many projects going on. I have a sense of nervousness, not me personally, but on other members of the board, that this takes the same exact people who have to do other projects. And in the presentation, it didn't actually state the recommended, like, this will be project number 8 after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or we could do it tomorrow morning. But to do that, we're not going to be able to do some other stuff. To me, it's not a high priority, but I like the project. From the point of view of communication, there is just not enough communication. No matter what we do, there will never be enough communication to the public. So for me, it's another arm of communication. And also, I think this could be done in Spanish and English, which many of our pieces can't. I'm sorry?
No, everything should be.
Well, I mean, no, but this is easier because
Yeah.
this is digital, so we
Yeah.
could actually do them, we can use AI actually, because it's all just digital, so I like that idea. So I'm for the project. The price surprised me, I thought it would actually be more, because I've tried to do this project myself in Scarsdale, and it was much more money. And the money is always not in the actual unit, it's in the casing, is where the money goes running off to left field, to be honest with you. Because of the materials and all of that, and the waterproofing and the graffiti proofing and blah, blah, blah. My personal experience, in turn, I had long conversations, Paul, about the pool, and my personal experiences with pools. And how rough that is, and how difficult they are, and how time consuming. So I've also had experience with this, and I'm just letting you know that it usually runs a little bit. At least in my research, 4 years ago, it was more money than this. So in one way, I'm like, you guys did a great job. It's not too expensive. I'm also concerned that that price may actually end up being higher, but communication is so important in a growing village like ours, with so many different people, commuters, businesses, walkability. The community center is right there. Well, I'm not gonna fight for one location or another, to be honest with you. If you think this is the better one, I'm only looking at you because he's sitting to my left. I have to like go like this every 2 minutes. And I'm also with Manny that we need to prioritize it, not, oh, we can do it tomorrow, but prioritize it, and it's the same guys and women. This is when we think we should do it. And to lock in, if you say, April of 25, or, September of whatever. I think everybody's okay, because I don't think time is of the essence on this project, unlike others. So that's sort of where I'm at. I think you've heard now from everybody, it's.
If I could just-
Clearly.
Yeah, but just to touch on yes, we have a lot of projects going on, but correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, this is a pretty self-sustained project. I think our staff time would be very minimal. The prices you have there is the sign and it being installed. I think the only thing that Paul said we would do in-house is the electric, which is literally right there, or we can get it into the building. Right. So it's not, I don't think it's a major project. I don't think it's something that's gonna even be a blip on the screen. You're gonna turn around and it's there. So as far as prioritizing it with other projects, the other projects dwarf what this is.
Oh, no.
And there's just no, I just don't understand. I'm trying to wrap my arms around, why are we delaying? We approved this in last year's budget. And now we're gonna go to 25 and we're gonna wait. We want to prioritize what things that are a lot bigger going on. And this is basically, hands down, very little involvement on the village.
What is it encased in, Paul?
So it doesn't come encased. What the purchase consortium offers is the sign proper and all the components. There's also a appended installation contract that they do as a sub to this vendor that was included in what was sent around to you all. It was about the same per both sites, about $10,000 for the installation. And then we would be left more or less with a safely erected sign, which we need to bring power to. That would come out of our annual bid electrician. We can guesstimate anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000 maybe to bring it to where it needs to run. And that depends on the site. Market Square, probably a little cheaper because we have power right at the kiosk, and these are very low amp drawing because they're LED. So, the cost for the encasement is still, I mean, this is, go back to people like the placemaking. That is a perfect opportunity for people like that to pitch in, because we know we have to encase it somehow, some way,
right.
and we're going to do it in-house, and we have the funding for it, and we really just need their artistic impression. So the encasement we envision doing in-house with in-house masons, or if it was going to be masonry, if it was going to be something else, we would.
Well, the school is aluminum, right? It's not encased.
It's a little smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a little more elaborate. I mean, just to fill in some of the blanks. I don't want to drag this
No,
on.
please, I was gonna go to you now, so.
So filling in the blanks from the things I heard, we talked a little bit about when we talked about the purchase consortium. So it's a fixed price off of a pre-established vendor. The use of the sign, you guys talked about a little bit. I could tell you because Omar referenced Yorktown. I live in Yorktown, so it's used everything from like
the baseball parades all the way through. It must have some tie into the chamber, I guess, up there because there's a lot of advertisement on there for local businesses. And you know, it's it also posts about the meetings, and there's also multiple signs. I mean, there's one in front of the high school, there's one in front of the intersections,
Yep.
police headquarters. They all have signs in New York. It's crazy. They're everywhere. But you're right. Everybody drives past the police station and
You should
everybody sees
call
it.
them, because I think what they're on is a co-advertising program where there's money that's being exchanged for advertising. Because that was an option I was looking at in Scarsdale, where there's a certain amount that goes for advertising and then people pay for that. That is very messy. So good for Yorktown that they do, but there are very few communities that do it.
Whatever they do,
Yeah.
they do. I know. They
Yeah,
pay taxes, I
And they're,
guess.
I mean, I was up there, I saw it.
So-
Are there examples of encasements or I
Well,
try
it
to
can go
think, 'cause
everywhere.
the high school just has a metal.
Right, so
frame,
that's the
right?
basic, but Phelps Hospital has it, some use brick, Regeneron has one on their property, and it's really beautiful with plants. I mean, they could be anything.
It depends on which site. So just using this site, you know, the boards can be angled to face both directions. So you'd want to do something obviously in concert with the building. So I can imagine there would be
So it
something
has
in
the same
stone.
look and feel and not so.
Yeah.
You actually go by so many when you go, like in Saratoga, that you don't even realize anymore as you drive that there's things out, because we've all gotten so used to them. And the county put those huge things up like that are monstrous. I mean, they're, you know, really expensive. Anyway, so what else did you want to fill? You said fill in the gaps.
So, you got the email there. I don't know how much, you know, time. It's really going to be administrative time, and then you're going to have a running overhead cost outside of the encasement work. But for right now, it's just administrative, and maybe our building maintenance person help coordinate where the power is going to get run to by an outside contractor. And then there's going to be maybe some training for the whoever's going to operate this. I believe it's going to be out of the manager's office
Did
with
you
Ms.
look at that,
Hoffman.
Karen?
Yeah, a couple of different things, but I think that Laurel and Jeannie really have been, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Paul and Jamie have really been running with this. I think that, I do think that if we go back into, you know, I do want to say that this is a heavily trafficked road, both, you know, it's a lot of traffic at rush hour. It's a lot of pedestrian traffic. So I'm not, you know, I think there probably is value to this
Okay.
location. We could quantify that now that we have, you know, traffic counters and things like that.
I don't think we need to spend time on that. The board is basically saying we have one trustee who says, I'm interested, but not now. One that says I'm interested in now. One that says I'm fine with it and I'm fine here. And one that said I'm 50-50. I don't think we need to take even more time. I think it's now a matter, the numbers seem right. I think you're gonna find encasement is expensive. That was my experience. The issue Scarsdale has with these things, I'm only using my personal experience, and New Rochelle too, is that the light and the LEDs actually are distracting to drivers. They set off a lot of light, like a lot of these lights we see.
You know, we talked about that.
So I'm leaving that to you. I'm not, I don't need, you know it, you'll take care of it, you'll figure out where to put it. I don't need to have a voice in that. So the board is not unanimous, you know, but it's like leaning towards doing it. So I think we just have to go through it. Jamie has a job that's thousands of 5-minute things. Everything's 5 minutes, but there's thousands of them. It's actually a lot. Doing those newsletters and all of that. But if she feels that's cool, because she'll probably be the one, that's when the manager decides. I don't think that's a barrier to it. And if we have to find somebody else at some point. So I'm not seeing barriers. I'm seeing a board that's not 100%. And everybody's sort of saying, we should just figure out what we want. I personally think any form of communication that will help us also let people know when things are closed. I am not about advertising. I think if the nonprofit wants to do it, they should do it on their property and like get permission, and it's a sign. Because now you're asking a whole lot of work and it becomes, oh, this is like never done correctly. But that's a different conversation. So if you could look at encasements and what you hear from others, what they take, you can just call Yorktown where you live and ask them what they're doing, since they have so many. But I'm sort of.
Well, again, I don't wanna-
Capping what the board is saying. So we just have to sort of let them know what to do as a next step.
I don't want to get too promotional about the skill set in-house, but we have it. So I really think it's going to be a material cost for the encasement, and then the labor is going to come out of our existing operating budget with labor. That's what I see.
I
I'm
mean,
just gonna say, I had this conversation about the. I was sort of right over and over again. It's always more, these are projects that seem like they shouldn't be, I can't say it any more clearly, I don't wanna be right. It's always a problem, just budget for it. It's not easy, I'm telling you, I've been through this.
I get it.
And with the community.
I don't understand the pool reference, though. I don't.
The pool references that nothing goes easy.
the
They're very
pool just took
complicated-
longer than
Yeah,
our
very complicated environments.
conservative estimates.
And by the way, I should tell you, without naming names, I just spoke to somebody at a university that closed up their pool because they just can no longer. Pools are very complicated with both the health department and, it's water and electricity together. And they just can't afford to maintain it. We're doing a great job. I'm just saying, you're gonna find that there's a higher cost, but I'm telling you, I don't care there's a higher cost. I'm just begging you to listen to me and include the question that Yorktown asked. Given all of that, I still think it's worth it. And we could use the placemaking if they want to focus on it. If they don't, that's fine too. Do you have any comments on this? Yeah, do you have any comments or questions or points of view?
The only-
this?
the
'Cause
one-
again, let me repeat, got one that's all in, 100%, one that says I'm in, but not now. One that says I'm okay with it, one that says I'm fine with it as it is. I think you're under budgeting and the timing will be longer than you
As a
think.
project now, I think the biggest issue of timing is just making sure we have our staff doing a lot of projects right now, so just timing it
Okay,
with some other projects that they're doing, but I think there's no reason, I agree with Bob, this is a pretty much of a turnkey project in that
Okay.
regard. I do want to say, no matter how much we get the word out there and we do a lot of social media, we have 3.8 thousand followers on Facebook. We have 30,000 people that we want to communicate with. It's a lot, but it's hard to reach people.
Yeah.
And having this, I do think gives an advantage given, we look out the window every day, there's people constantly walking by and it does give another opportunity to reinforce. It is very hard to make sure people know what's
we're
going
never
on.
gonna reach, so these are building blocks, and that's why it was approved. And the budgets aren't approved like, oh, let's go do it. The budgets are there to put stakes in the ground and say, well, look at this. But the point is, if we get another 1,000 people to see something that didn't look at it another way, it's a big win. I mean, I don't need the data. It's like, the mayor's message is like almost 10,000 and 48% open rate. Like, so every week, X number of people get it. Not everybody, but X number. So now we're gonna have another Y and then we'll have Z. And before you know it, we've got half the community seeing things. And we can always say, look, we're doing the best we can, and I do like the digital because I think the English Spanish is much easier than in other forums that we use. So I think that might be also an advantage. And I just think that the people come and pay their bills here will be able to maybe see it a
A
little
lot of people
differently.
come here. There's
So I
also a
think there's
bus
a lot
stop
of
there
good
too,
things.
so.
Yeah, not in the parking lot. So anyway, I think I'm hearing that only you want to delay it, that you don't want to do it right now, that everybody else is saying, right? He said he's okay with it. Did he not? Or did he say he wants to do a trade-off on it? But I think it's looking like a yellow to a green light. I beg you to just revisit the encasement and, you're gonna have to figure out who's working on it and how you figure it out into a schedule. And I just reiterate, nothing has to be done tomorrow. It's not, you have to schedule it and amongst many things and say, this is when we're gonna do it. I think everybody will be fine with that. Is there anything I'm missing, any of this? Also, I think with the encasement, you can put the stuff that comes in and then the placement committee can come and say, I want to do the surrounds on it. I think it could be done in 2 phases, by the way.
Yeah, it's
If I remember
anticipated.
this correctly.
It's anticipated the sign is going to be up and energized before we consider how to.
Right, and then you decide
Finish
if
it
you
off.
want to put brick around it or flowers or whatever you want to do with it. Yeah. Great. Would I miss anything? Okay. I don't think we have exec session either, right? We got everything? Is that a?
Thank for this evening. Thank you very much. Motion
No,
to
not
adjourn.
her.
Oh,
Her. Dana, you want to do a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, 9:30. Thank you for joining us. We are adjourned.
Good night.
You?
No, that came in the mail for you.
Just, and it's just
Look
like
on
a
the
coincidence?
It's just a coincidence.
Oh, that is so crazy.
Yeah.
Well, this is the same stuff they were just showing. I thought maybe you guys said.
No, it's, I swear to God, it's just a coincidence.
Oh,
I
okay.
know, I saw that too. I'm like, oh, look.
Well, maybe I
But
should.
if you
give
wanna
it to you
share it,
guys.
we'll-
Well,